Hello again and welcome to another Warhammer 40k Morning Glory video. In today's episode we are going to be covering some basic competitive tactics discussing the principles of force concentration. This is one of the most important things that a new player can learn, and a failure to take advantage of one's force concentration can easily lead to disaster. But on the other hand, effectively leveraging your force concentration can mean the difference between defeat and victory. And so without further ado, let's fix bayonets and charge right into today's episode. Let us begin by observing the battlefield before us. On one side, we have an elite army, and on the other, we have a horde one. Now for today, we are using these Chaos Marines to represent the elite force and the Guard to represent the horde one, but you could insert almost any two factions here. Maybe you've got Custodians on this side, maybe you've got Tyranids on the other one. Let us imagine for a moment that we are in command of the elite army. We turn up to the table and we see that it's Dawn of War deployment and that there are 5 objectives on this board, 1 in each player's deployment zone and 3 strung out across the middle. Your natural inclination is going to be to go for all of the primary points that you can get your hands on. If you could take all 3 in the middle, then it's going to deny your opponent loads of primary and at the same time potentially score you a ton as well, leading to inevitable victory. So you start putting down your big units, maybe back them up with some infantry, and as you get across the line, you start putting some more down, and by the time that you've done your deployment, you have spread your force out fairly equally across the line. Maybe you've got a little bit more on one side than the other because you got kind of excited and you put your big unit down first, but by and large, you have essentially created a nice equal force across your line, and that way you can put equal power onto taking each objective. Now in theory, all of that is great, and it is a sensible policy that will surely bring you a glorious victory. The reality is though, you've just lost the game and you haven't even rolled a dice yet. But how can that be so? We've not even seen who's got first turn yet. We don't know how the dice are going to go. We don't know what the objectives might be. Barring outstanding luck, this game is over before it began. And it's simply because you have not leveraged your greatest advantage as an elite army. You have not used your force concentration. You see, in comparison to most hordes, elite armies have units that are of a higher quality. It means that when your unit takes on an enemy one in a 1-to-1 fight, you should easily be able to beat them. Hell, you can probably even take 2 enemy units on for every one of yours. But 3-to-1, 4-to-1, those are odds that not even the mighty Custodians are likely to overcome. And so what you've done by spreading your army out here is diluted your strength. You have spread yourself too thin. Because what's going to happen is these guys are going to move out to here, and they're going to end up taking on a significant part of the enemy force, but they haven't got the force, they haven't got enough firepower to overcome what's in front of them. And likewise, the same thing happens over here. These guys move forward and then end up taking on battle tanks, chimeras with infantry inside. They've got heavy bolter teams there. And suddenly these guys here, they're not looking very threatening at all. In fact, they're looking outnumbered, outgunned, and soon to be very, very dead. So what's the solution? What can we do to stop this from happening? Well, it's actually really straightforward. We just need to concentrate our deployment. We need to make sure that our army isn't spread out too much. And what you do is you look at the beginning of the game and you just consider how many primary objectives do you need. If you try and control all 3, there's a good chance you end up with none because you get overwhelmed locally. You don't achieve any local superiority. But if you focus on just 2 of the ones in the middle and hold your home one, you're still controlling the majority of the objectives on the board. And it's better to have 2 objectives completely locked down than 3 objectives that you're either barely holding on and being contested, or that you're just flat out losing. If we reset our deployment, this is what an army that is maximizing its force concentration looks like. We've brought our big centerpiece unit over and put it as an anchor where it can go either left or right. We've also got our infantry and other support units now concentrated together so they're working more effectively. And this doesn't look like a random collection of scattered units spread out across a whole deployment zone. This now looks like a genuinely threatening force that is going to be able to go forward into the board and take control. Just a very quick side note. I want people to understand that we've just got an example in front of us. In a real battlefield and with an army that was properly pointed up and had all the little bits and bobs in it, you probably wouldn't leave this flank open 100% like this. What you would do is you take like a small unit of, or these being Chaos Marines, you put like cultists or poxwalkers or nurglings, something that you could just spread out here. And the reason you do that is you wouldn't want enemy units being able to deep strike down in and start hitting you with the flanks or threatening your home objective. But we're just using this, like I said, as an example. And you would only use a very cheap unit back here to achieve that. Something that doesn't have a lot of damage output, that is essentially chaff, that's going to help you screen out and protect the flank. So you essentially, when we talk about force concentration, it's about taking those elite damage dealing units, those ones that are going to be hurting the enemy, pooling those together and making a really, really powerful just concentration of force, hence force concentration, on the battlefield. Like I said, just thought I'd mention it because I didn't want people getting the wrong end of the stick, going into games, leaving a flank utterly unscreened, utterly exposed, and then ending up getting punished for it. But going back to the main video now, force concentration isn't just about what you do at the beginning of the game. Deploying correctly will stop you from losing the game, but the decisions that you make throughout the turns are going to be what help you secure victory. And a big part of keeping your force concentration and even reinforcing it is the clever use of transports and reserves. Transports can allow you to get a nice injection of force where you need it. Perhaps these guys are slogging forward into the middle and there's just a little bit more enemy resistance than you were expecting. You want to make sure that you take that objective because you've already sacked off one. You can't forego another. This is where your transport comes in. Being able to quickly and rapidly respond to a situation where either it's a threat that you need to secure or to take advantage of a breakthrough. In our scenario, you might find that our dreadnought's pushing forward to here. We've got a unit of Marines that are pushing forward too. Perhaps though, unfortunately, one of our units of Marines has pushed forward, but then unfortunately has died. Now at this point, it's starting to get a little bit dicey. Maybe the guard has taken a few casualties, but it's not looking great. What you can do is you can take your transport, like a Land Raider here, push it forward. Now already that's going to give its own firepower into the mix, but then you can deliver some extra force concentration via the troops that are inside it. And suddenly these Terminators and that Land Raider, and again, it just goes back to what we were saying before. The one Dreadnought and the 5 Marines, that didn't look threatening. 1 Dreadnought, 5 Marines, 5 Terminators, and a goddamn, I know this is a Spartan, but a goddamn Land Raider for our example. Now that objective is looking pretty bloody locked down. Likewise, on this flank, this Dreadnought and these Marines might have been pushing forward, but again, sadly, one of the Marine squads has died en route. Maybe it got shelled by artillery, maybe it pushed out and then died, who knows. But we're back to the very beginning where that's not really very threatening. We've already used our transport. What do? Deep strike and reserves. Suddenly, dropping in some reserves here, like these Terminators. Hell, maybe you've got a couple of blobs of Terminators coming in. That's already looking pretty good. But don't forget, you've got strategic reserves as well. maybe you put a unit of Marines in outflank. Well, turn 2 comes along, turn 3 comes along, they start coming on from board edges. And again, suddenly, we've injected some force concentration. We've injected some power to make sure that we secure our gains. Big thing I see people with deep strikers doing is just sending them off to where the rest of the army isn't. Like, that's okay if you're maybe deep striking down a unit of Nurglings to deploy a teleporter homer, or you're outflanking a Cyclops demolition vehicle to get behind enemy lines. That's fine. That's a cheap sacrificial unit. But I have seen so many games where someone was like pushing forward onto an objective. They'd already spread out a little bit. They were pushing forward onto the objective. They were losing that fight. They had no chance of winning that fight. But for some reason, they took a part of their reinforcements and just deep struck them on the objective. Maybe they didn't have any force there whatsoever. And they were like, oh, I'm going to deep strike down here near the objective. But it's like, well, the problem you've got there is either you've lost all your guys en route, or you never had any guys on this side anyway, and all you've done is now sent these guys to their doom. Because there's no way they're going to be able to take on an entire flank of enemies on their own. And now the fight over here is weaker, the fight over here is weaker. It's an example of taking reserves and essentially not using them in support of the rest of your army, not using them to achieve force concentration. However, just because you do leverage your force concentration, it does not guarantee you the victory. This is Warhammer 40k, a game of dice, of random objectives, and don't forget, there is another person on the other side of the table who's going to try and leverage their own advantages to win the game. I can't guarantee that doing this will win you the game, but I can tell you that by not doing it, you're almost certainly going to lose. But of course, all of this is just like my opinion, man. Let me know what you think down in the comment section below. Did you find this video useful? And are there any other topics and principles you want me to cover? If you enjoyed today's episode, don't forget to smash that like button and subscribe to never miss a video. Would you like to know more? If so, then please consider becoming a channel member or patron. By supporting the channel, not only will you be doing your part, but you'll also be helping me create more content for your viewing pleasure and unlocking a whole host of perks. You get everything from a badge next to your name, custom emojis, but the big one is access to the Mordian Glory Discord server, an online community with almost 2,500 active members. It's always popping off in the MG Discord. We've got channels for army lists, hobbying, tactics, stories, and even a pretty spicy meme section as well. For all you greenhorns that wanted to see the Mordian Glory Hole, today is your lucky day. And joking aside, I do want to say a massive thank you to all of the current channel members and patrons. You guys are amazing. Truly the lifeblood of the channel. I could not do Mordian Glory full-time without the incredible and generous support of my members. So thank you guys so much. And last but certainly not least, I want to say a personal thank you to all of my top tier Patreons. These are the War Masters, and they have truly gone above and beyond the call of duty. So a big shout out to Bon Vert, Mad Larkin, Marcus Roberts, Mark Panconi, RJ Scorpion, Swordfish Trombone, John Stubbs, Nick Walsh, Diesel Fox, and August Varney. Thank you guys so much. Your incredible generosity is a massive part of how I'm able to do Mordian Glory full time, and it is a big driving force behind the channel. But I hope you all enjoyed today's video. Thank you for watching, and of course, as always, I'll see you guys next time.